This is a Back to the City with a Difference. I'm very excited to be welcoming CODY STEINMANN to the Twin Cities. We met before you actually moved here just a couple of months ago at Ice House.
Yeah.
At the Cat Sack show. Cat Sacks involves Big Cats, Miguel Hurtado, hashtag Miguel Hurtado, because that's his one internet presence, and Nelson Devereaux on sax. So Nelson is someone who you know very well from Milwaukee.
Yeah, so about 5 years ago, I was 19, I think, when me and Nelson met. It was at this saxophone player in Milwaukee's house, Jay Anderson.
Yeah.
So like Jay would throw these like jam sessions, just invite a bunch of people over, and Nelson happened to be in town, and he came in the room, and it was me, this other saxophone player, Leonard Simpson, and Carlos Adames on drums, who's a really great Latin percussionist, and we started playing this tune, this really infamous, like quote unquote hard tune, in the jazz category called Giant Steps by John Coltrane. At that point in time, I had been really into shedding that sort of music. So we all started taking turns soloing, and then we started like trading choruses and just kind of having the whole like, you know, jazz guy vibe and you sort of thing, like, here, do you have chops, blah blah blah, and like we just really hit it off because like we were both just, you know, at that point in time like really in on that sort of thing.
How long ago was that?
That was about 4 or 5 years ago.
Okay.
And we just really hit it off. Me and Nelson were just like, man, I was like, dude, you sound great. He's like, you too. And I was like, man, I really would like to start something with you. He's like, well, I live in Minneapolis. He's like, I moved there to go to the U of M and whatever else. So, and we had talked for like, you know, 2-3 years, and whenever he was back in Milwaukee, he would come and sit in with my groups. I had a steady residency at one of the most prestigious jazz venues in Milwaukee called the Jazz Estate, and Nelson would come and sit in. I was also playing at Mayfair Mall for the MATC. I was going to Milwaukee Area Technical College at the time, and they had this thing where they'd have their students play at the Mayfair Mall, and I would play there, and Nelson would randomly be at Mayfair Mall, and we'd be like, hey, what's up?
Hey, that was a good Nelson impression. I can imagine, hey.
Yeah, the dope hand.
Exactly.
Don't forget that one. Dope vibes, singing all the time.
Here he is with his doing on the DIY green screen. This is Nelson doing such a gesture.
Yeah.
Probably making that sound. Hey.
So we really hit it off, and we ended up forming this group called Milwaukeeless.
Yeah.
With a drummer who really close friend of mine, just absolute monster on kit. His name's Paul Westfall.
We can actually hear him at the moment because the soundtrack we should highlight is your single.
Yeah.
The single with the CODY STEINMANN Quintet.
Yes.
The song is called I'm All Too Familiar with Hopelessness, and we'll be talking a lot about the song soon. But so we can hear him drumming right now.
Yes. And Paul and me, you know, we had been playing on and off for a while too, just all sorts of different stuff and trying to get a project started. So we started this group with Nelson called Milwaukeeless, and the debut of it was at the Jazz Estate, and it was absolutely amazing night. It was completely packed, and it was amazing. And so about 6 to 8 months after that, like the problem with that group is like when you have people who live in different cities and everything, it's very hard to get together and make shows happen, especially like, you know, I was gigging probably 5-6 nights a week at that point in time, on top of going to school at MATC.
Yeah.
Paul was like, you know, he was gigging professionally all the time, and so was Nelson. So finally, after like, you know, 6 to 8 months, we did a show out here in Minneapolis at the Jazz Central.
Sure.
We added two members of the group that night. We had Ted Olson on bass and Jake Baldwin on trumpet. And at that point in time,
Jake also plays with Harmar. Is that right?
Jake Baldwin. Yeah, Jake Baldwin plays with Harmar.
Yeah, as Nelson has done.
Yeah. Well, Jake's another really close friend of mine too.
Yeah.
So, and that was an amazing night. And at that point in time, like the music that we were playing was just like all music that was like composed by either myself, Paul on drums, or Nelson.
Yeah.
And and after that night, like, you know, they're like, everyone's like, yo, we want you to move out here. You should come out and join the scene. You know, we really
that was
could use
the
you.
First night playing in Minneapolis.
Yeah, and everyone was just really, really, really into it. I wanted to move out here, but school kind of took a priority. I ended up going to UW Parkside to study with Russ Johnson, who's the trumpet player actually in
the quintet
with me. Yeah. World class.
Your mentor.
Player. Yes,
he's in your quintet.
Yes,
nice.
my mentor is in my quintet. I'm very fortunate to have such a great man mentor me and believe in my vision enough to be part of my band.
Mm-hmm.
I ended up going to Parkside to study closer with him. I'd been studying with him for about a year or two prior to going to Parkside, and when I went to Parkside, I won their highest scholarship through the Rita Talent Pick and Scholarship Competition.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And so I attended there for 2 years, and just had some trials and tribulations, went through a really, really, really hard breakup with the girl I was with at the time, and we've been living together. We went to school at Parkside together, we did everything together. And kind of while going through all that sort of stuff and everything else that I was going through at the time, I wrote the
I was going to say, does that inform... So this song is called I'm All Too Familiar with Hopelessness.
Yes.
At the beginning of the episode, it was just you on the guitar.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then I think Paul is actually, he was the first to be referenced in the episode, and he's the first to make an appearance on the song. And then by now, we've got not just Russ on the trumpet, but we have Curtis Crump on the tenor sax.
Yes.
And then that's the whole crew.
And then we have John Christensen on bass.
Yeah.
And they all kind of come in at the same time.
So what was the genesis of the song? Did you write it on guitar?
So the way I wrote that piece was I'd come up. So the chords are standard kind of like pop tune sort of chords, but the voicings that I use on the guitar are very specific to the instrument because they create certain harmonic sounds that you can only get from the guitar, like a lot of minor second sort of sounds.
Oh yeah.
Just very, very dense clashes. Not something that you can really emulate on any other instrument. But then I created counterpoint between the horn lines that's reminiscent of like Baroque styled counterpoint, like Bach, all that sort of stuff. I studied a lot with this composer, amazing composer, James Crowley at Parkside.
Yeah, wow.
And if there's one person like another person to go to Parkside for, it's definitely him. He's had his music played all over the world, and like my first semester taking comp seminar with him was basically it's just like one-on-one lessons in composition, and I was like, I want to study fugues, and we just got real deep into studying just counterpoint and like going through Bach's full temper clavier all the way through like micro counterpoint, just modern 20th century classical.
What is micro counterpoint?
Just very, very, very dense counterpoint. It's just mathematic sort of stuff, it's nothing that like anyone who's like not a musician is gonna listen to.
Is it and so which of these techniques are at play in this song?
Baroque style counterpoint, so like Bach's sort of style, but the thing that's different is the rhythms that I use. The rhythms are a lot more triplet based, and there's a lot more modern rhythmic stuff happening rather than the more like straight sort of eighth note rhythms or very like stuck in like 6/8 or stuff that Bach had. So it's basically just Bach style counterpoint with more modern rhythms.
And this is the first song to be recorded for what will be a full album.
Yeah, there's 9 tracks that I wrote for this group. A few of them, 3 of them we had played with Milwaukeeless, but I revamped them for this group. The other 6 I'd written over the period of time where I was just going through a lot of stuff, and it just needed to happen. And basically, it's kind of the album is kind of just a chronicle of me dealing with like inner demons and other sort of things I needed to deal with.
Is there a trajectory to what will be the record, and if so, where does this song come in the sequencing?
Well, basically, this song would be it'd be towards the beginning of the album, either like 3rd or 4th track.
It seems like it kind of sets the tone. Like it's like almost like building the character of Cody.
Yeah.
It struck me, I was thinking about the word hopeless or hopelessness. There's something about like gradations of the affect hope. You might think that you're devoid of hope, but there could always be even less hope.
Oh yeah.
I just find the etymology of the word really interesting. Like how are you exploring the idea of hopelessness in the song?
Well, I mean, for me, like just the whole vibe of the tune.
Yeah.
So if you listen to the beginning of it, like it's just me solo on guitar. It's
Yes.
like this A minor type vibe, and I'm obviously like there's certain changes that I'm imposing into this A minor thing that I'm hearing. But then the horns slowly come in, everything slowly develops, and then when the saxophone solo starts with Curtis, just Curtis playing.
Mm-hmm.
And then what I wanted two solos to happen, which is when you hear Russ coming with the trumpet back on the top of the A section-ish part, because I wanted it to sound like two people arguing.
Ah, right.
I wanted it to have this vibe of when I was writing this tune, I was also thinking of making a music video for it and having the horns kind of be the two people in a relationship, whether it be friends or intimate relationship or whatever, arguing, or even your relationship with yourself.
Right. So conflict.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then obviously towards the end it resolutes back into the main melody again. But it doesn't necessarily end on a very happy note. It still ends with a very dissonant A minor 9 sort of sound at the end.
It does, and with an emphasis on the all too familiar, there's a sense of this being the MO. If it's dramatizing a conflict, an interpersonal conflict, there's nothing special about this one. Perhaps this is what is regularly happening. Is there a way in which that idea kind of comes true in the music?
Well, yeah. Well, and also the rest of the tracks on the album. So basically, the first track on the album is going to be this song called Psydoc, which is Cody S backwards.
Nice.
SYDOC.
Yeah.
Sometimes when I say Psyduck, I accidentally say Psyduck. So if you're a Pokemon fan, you know the Psyduck is.
You can like it for that reason too, if you want to.
But so basically, the idea of Psyduck was that was the me claiming what these inner demons are. That I have things that I need to deal with, or things in my life that I've went through and whatnot, and this is me putting them out there in the open. And I still haven't necessarily finished exactly where all the other tracks are going to happen. But then the ending track is a tune called In Search of a Happy Ending.
Oh, nice.
Which is kind of where I am now.
Yeah. I like that it's not a happy ending, but instead in search of a happy ending.
Well, life is hard, and life goes on, and it's not as black and white as, you'd like it to be. At the end of the day, I'm very much a kind of person who makes everything black and white, because at the end of the day, you're either in or you're out of whatever decision you make. At least for me, I'm a person of extremes. There's no such thing as middle ground for me, and I wish there could be, but that's just not the way I'm wired as a human being. Right. For me, I'm either completely into whatever it is I'm doing, or I'm just no, I want nothing to do with that.
Well, welcome. Thank you for being completely into Minneapolis. It's good to have you here with that attitude too.
Well, I moved here with barely any money. Well, absolutely no savings to my name and everything. Basically, just with the
I can relate to that.
With the wind that my friends out here are gonna do what they can to help me out, and I'm just gonna do the job and do what I have to do to pay the bills for now.
Yeah, a whim thoroughly enforced by that first experience of playing in Minneapolis.
Yeah, no. But yeah, so the idea of hopelessness, for me, and the idea that I'm all too familiar with it, and at the end of the day, this whole album, and kind of my whole thing with music has always been that I want to be able to inspire people. My biggest idol ever is John Coltrane. And some people that I don't care if it's stereotypical. I'm his philosophies and the way that he governed himself as a human being are absolutely beautiful.
What are some of those philosophies, and how do they inform you?
Just the way that he was completely all into his art, and his art was his way of giving back to God for the gift of being able to make people happy through music. Yeah. And for me, that's kind of my mission is to inspire anyone who's went through any struggles in their lives, that they can be great and do great things with their lives despite anything they went through.
Right. Yeah. To be so he's a beacon of hope.
Yes.
For you.
Yes.
And you would like nothing more than to be that.
I would like nothing more than to be that for anyone else either, you know.
Yeah.
And to have that empathy for other people who have struggled in any way, shape, or form is very important to me, especially in this day and age with like, you know, everything that's like obviously happened in Charlottesville and everything that's going on right now. We're in a really, really scary times.
We are all too familiar with hopelessness.
Oh yeah, very much. Very, very much so. Yeah. I mean, I feel like hope gives you purpose. You know? You know, you as a human being, like, you know, what makes you is like, you know, both your flaws and your triumphs. You know, and your way that you triumph over these flaws. You know, and for me, you know, through a lot of the things that I went through, the only way for me to have found any relief from the things that I've had to struggle with is by taking on this attitude of wanting to constantly grow. You know, and just forcing myself and pushing myself all the time to the max to grow and move forward and innovate, not just in music, but in myself and in the way that I govern myself as a person. Your
interactions with others.
And, you know, but also allowing myself to be human. You know, and I feel that's something that, you know, with social media and other things today that a lot of people don't allow themselves to be. You know, they don't allow themselves to make mistakes. They don't allow themselves to mess up. Because, like, you know, today anyone could be sitting here, like, recording you and, like, you know, hear everything that you've done wrong, and then you're going to be embarrassed about it because everyone in the world knows about it. But, like, you know, to me, like, no one should be ashamed of their mistakes, and we shouldn't shame people for their mistakes. We should love people for their mistakes and be there to guide them rather than shun anyone for anything that they've done wrong.
And to be oneself, to put oneself out there in a position where you can grow. To, you know, throw yourself into the Twin Cities with the hope, the warranted hope that the music community here will embrace you and assist you. It's not a coincidence that that's what you're doing, and that's also what the record is exploring.
Yes, it's exactly what it is. And, like, you know, and I also have multiple other projects that I work with and other things that also play into that whole role. But this album in specific, you know, it was written for these players that are on this track with them in mind and with a certain vision, very, very, very flushed out and worked on. And you know, and that's another thing to me is, like, you know, having vision in anything that you do, you know, especially writing. Like, you know, like certain people, like, you know, they just write music and they have anyone sub and anyone play with them and anyone play that music. And I can understand that, like, you know, when you go on tour somewhere else and, like, you know, one of your players can't make it, having someone else. But, you know, I feel what makes, like, really great bands or really great groups is the fact that you're writing for a specific idea with specific intent and with specific people in mind.
And how are these the right people for this project?
Well, one, we can start with Paul. Like, I have like, you know, 3 people who want to call my best friends. Nelson being one of them.
Good choice.
Paul Westfall being another, and another drummer from Milwaukee, Samuel Casala, who's a really, really, really great drummer and one of the most beautiful visionaries I've ever met in my life when it comes to just, like, you know, having really solid visions and being able to make them happen. He works with a lot of kids, and he was the brainchild behind the hip hop jazz groups I was in, 3 Stacks Elliott and Rhythm Changes. But those 3 people, you know, are like my group of best friends. But Paul, you know, the thing with Paul was I knew Paul's sound. I knew what Paul did. We have a group together called Seed Sounds.
Which actually we can currently hear.
Yeah, we can currently be listening to that right now.
News to us, but not to you.
A little bit more out than everything else you've probably heard so far.
I've actually never heard it before, so this is why I'm not currently commenting on it. But the editing me is enjoying it. So this is from an album which is completely tracked but is yet to be released.
It's yet to be. It's been done for like over 6 months now. It's just the fact that, like, you know, we were all going through, like, you know, different really, really busy times and haven't had time to focus on getting the artwork and all that sort of stuff done. I have a artist in mind, and I just have to basically just pay him to finish that stuff up, and then we just have to get prints made of it and put it out. But
yeah. So again,
done.
this is Paul on the. We can hear Paul on the drums in this project too.
Yeah. And like, you know, me and Paul had played together a lot, and you know, he'd been involved in the bulk of my original projects, and I'd played his music, he's played my music, and just as a person, he's a beautiful person. Like, I knew that, like, you know, when I presented him this music, that he was gonna do what I wanted him to do with this music. Curtis Crump, he was another really heavy musician at Parkside. Amazing tenor saxophone player, and when I came to Parkside, he was one of the other like few really serious cats at that school.
Yeah.
And we just hit it off immediately because, you know, we were both like, you know, we both knew tunes, we both knew jazz tunes, and we were both you know, gigging a lot and all that sort of stuff. And he was another like, you know, like apprentice of Russ's. So, as well as Paul, actually, which is kind of funny. So
really?
There's 4 people in this group coming out of, like, you know, studying a lot with Russ.
And one of them is.
Russ.
The 5th member is Russ.
Yeah. So like it's great. And then I had seen John play a lot with this group, Lesser Lakes Trio, and I'd seen him play with another really great guitar player from Milwaukee, Kenny Reichert. And I'd always really, really dug him, you know. And then after you know, playing the music some with some other people and whatnot, Russ recommended that I use John.
Yeah, who is the bassist.
Yeah, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna give it a try. And we had him come in to record the track in the studio, and it just really vibed the right way, like what I was looking for.
Yeah.
But yeah, I knew with all these guys, like, what their sound was, because I had played with them a lot and I'd heard each of them a lot, so I knew what I wanted to write to bring out the sides of them that I wanted to bring out of them.
Yeah.
And the other thing is like, when I perform this music, like, you know, I've written tunes in mind, like, you know, with like, okay, I want you to be the soloist on this track, I want you to be the soloist on this track. I mean, if you notice, other than the intro on this track, I'm all familiar with Hopelessness, which I improvised. I don't take an actual solo on the piece, because that's not the role I wanted on that one. There's other tracks on the album where I do take that, but I wanted to emphasize this epic, big, beautiful sound that Curtis can have, and then this just really flexible, rough, just sometimes brutal sound that Russ can get. That's just absolutely amazing. And the thing about Russ is, like, you know, he's the kind of guy, I mean, on top of being a world-class trumpet player, that can play just about anything you put in front of him. You know, and he can play the most beautiful stuff you've ever heard, and he can play the most, like, disgusting, raw things you just revolt you. But you know, and that's the thing I love about him, and that's the thing. One of the things my goal as a player is to be able to do is to get, like, you know, both of those spectrums and everything in between.
So we're going to be wowed and revolted by the full record when it exists, but it doesn't yet exist.
It doesn't yet exist.
You were saying about what you wanted to emphasize on that song, but what we want to emphasize more than anything else in this video is that there's going to be a Kickstarter.
I have a GoFundMe
page.
I have a GoFundMe page that I started up, and if anyone's willing to throw anything my way, I would be eternally grateful for you helping to make my dream a reality. The goal is to get all my musicians up here at a studio and hash out the album within 3 days.
Yeah.
I know my guys, like, if we sat down and took 1 day to really, really rehearse the stuff, and then took 2 days to go in and live record everything, that we could get it done.
Right. So very manageable, and we can help make it happen.
Yeah, and that would yeah.
And so
I could not express in words how absolutely grateful I would be for any contribution from anyone.
We are currently visually surrounded by all of the information about the GoFundMe, the web address, and the image on it, and there's a link beneath the video too.
Yes.
But to find this, presumably someone can just go to GoFundMe and put CODY Steinmann Quintet.
Yeah,
is that how they would find it?
I think it's just CODY Steinmann. I'm gonna have to look at it again.
Yeah. Steinmann, Steinmann.
Yes.
CODY Steinmann. You can speed up the rate at which you're bowed and disgusted.
Yes.
By sending some money CODY's way. You referred to your involvement in hip hop.
Yes.
And the most exciting recent aspect of that development, has been with Genesis Renji. That's exciting because is this correct? $20,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We won.
Was won.
Yes.
What was how where?
So one, Jen, to me, is hands down the greatest Milwaukee rapper.
He was a poet to begin with.
Yeah, he was a poet to begin with before he started rapping, and the only person
we can hear him currently, of course.
the only person who can to get him to do poetry anymore is Samuel Casala, one of my other best friends, who also played in the group that night when we won the 20,000. So Jen, out of all the rappers I've worked with, he's one of those dudes who would come to me and Sam, like when we had 3 Stacks out or whatever, and he just he knew what we did, and he'd do whatever you want.
He trusted you.
He just trusted us to do our thing with the music, and which is something that I've worked with many other rappers and never experienced that. Someone who gave me that level of creative freedom. So I play a lot of free improv, I play a lot of out stuff, and on the song that we'll be listening to right now, Drown.
Yep.
When he came to us, if you listen to it, there's not really anything there for a guitar player to necessarily cling on to and play as a guitar part. So I just did a lot of auxiliary, just weird sounding noises. And one of the funniest parts about winning the 20,000 was the whole last song. I basically pretty much played my guitar with my keys. I took my keys out, and I was just sitting there doing this just making ridiculous noises.
Lucrative use of the keys.
Yeah, so every other guitar player lost to some guitar player who went up there and decided to play the guitar with his keys. It was one of the most amazing experiences I'd had in my life. That night. We came in and we got the whole huge rock star treatment, at Turner Hall and whatnot. And
what's the name of the competition?
It was the U.S. Bank Tour Possible competition.
And why is it called Tour Possible?
Because I guess it's just about the money is supposed to be used to sponsor a tour and sponsor a regional tour and
creating possibility.
Yeah, creating possibility, creating some hope.
Yeah, exactly. Recurring theme.
So we're gonna go
really?
there. Yeah, this plays into after having composed all this music, part of my hope and in my vision and everything else. And So Jen, this is Jen's group, Jen's brainchild, and Jen's doing with that money what Jen wants to do with that money.
Jen's money.
Yeah, and I'm completely cool with that. He's decided to give a portion to each of us to do what we want, but he's taking his time to figure out what he's gonna do with it. And honestly, Jen is another guy who's a really, really solid visionary, and whatever he's gonna do, I completely trust him in what it is, because he's the one person of all the rappers I worked with where there's never ever been a bad vibe, and has totally always been there for us as a group and made sure we guys got taken care of, got paid, everything like that.
Yeah.
And I'd rather have him take his time and figure out what he wants to do with that than just rush into something and then that's not fully developed and thought through.
Yeah, it seems so intentional, right? Back to when he first reached out to you, saying, "I want precisely you to do precisely what you do, what feels right. Play the guitar with your keys, or just do." Presumably, he didn't tell you to play the guitar with your keys.
No. He I had played with Jen multiple times before. So Sam Casala invited me into his group at the time, 3 Stacks Elliott, and at the time they had a residency at the Jazz Gallery, which is one of the places that Seed Sounds has the residency. And the idea with that was we would do a little bit of our original stuff, and then we'd have a person every month that was a feature artist, whether it be a rapper or pop artist or something like that. And we packed the Jazz Gallery every time. It was amazing. We created this huge following for like this like really original hip hop jazzish like collaboration sort of thing, and people were really into it. And so Jen was one of those people who was one of the features one time, and then he started hiring us to like be his backup band at different events that he was doing and whatnot, and he took care of us, and it was really really great. And then through that, like occasionally he would hit us up, like later after Three Stacks Elliott had broken up and later became Rhythm Changes. He would still occasionally hit us up to do some work with him. And then it was this night, I guess, like so Austin Mainkey, who was the DJ that night, and Sam had a gig with just them and Jen, I guess in like somewhere in Illinois at some college, I don't know which college, like a couple weeks before the US Bank Tour Possible competition, and like Austin's like, man, it'd be really nice if we had a guitar player or something like that to Jen. This is the story that I hear. I could be completely wrong, but
this is definitely the story that you heard.
Yes. And then like they were just like, well, why don't we just hit up Cody? And then they brought me in on it, and we had one rehearsal. We rehearsed once, and that was it. And we went in there. And, all the other groups that night were, good. They were very good. There was no group on that bill that night that was bad. But we were the only hip-hop group. And we were the only group with any black people in it. We're going to be just completely frank. And it was definitely against losing odds because, like, the crowd there, the bulk of the crowd was there to see all the other groups. They weren't necessarily there to see us. We had a certain amount of crowd that was there for us, which is great. Like, Jen has his own following, but a lot of it was there definitely for everyone else. But when we stepped on that stage, we just went so hard, and like Jen's got
I've seen some of the footage.
He's got a stage presence, and he's got a way of engaging Ron. I just remember like going up there, he's like, look, the only way this is gonna work is if all of you guys come closer and give me some crowd participation. So everyone got real into it, and we just went really hard. And I remember feeling immediately after, I was like, man, there's no way that we're gonna lose this. I was like, we went so hard. And like the other thing,
you went from no way we're gonna win to no way we're gonna lose.
Because I mean, like everyone just immediately was engaged, and me and Sam are both professional musicians, and I think that's one of the things that we also had on our side. I'm not sure if the other people in the other groups were necessarily like full-time musicians. And we went in and we were like, you know what, we're gonna just put everything we have out there, and if you don't like it, then whatever, but at least we put everything we possibly had into it. And they loved it. I remember right after the set, I came down to talk with Jen and my family and a few other people, and one of the judges just came over to me. He's like, man, what you guys just did up there was absolutely amazing. He's like, with the band and the live instrumentation with the DJ, it was beautiful. Some along those lines. And I remember sitting back, like in the back room as we all the bands were waiting to hear who won, and like there was a different band who won I think it was like a $500 prize or $100 prize for the most crowd votes. So there was someone someone there. There were bands there who like I said were more popular than us and won for having the most crowd votes. But when it came to the judges and when it came to who really brought it, it was us. And it was Jen's vision, and Jen just was man, he's like, I believe in you and what you do your thing with my music, and it was.
I think it worked. So in not only in search of but discovering a happy ending to that story and to this episode. Becoming perhaps all too familiar with hope.
All too familiar with
with things going well. So which I'm sure will continue to happen. But in the meantime, you will provide your record of the journey from being all too familiar with hopelessness. So I'm excited for that. We'll have Cody back to talk about that record once we've helped him fund it and it's been created. But in the meantime, I'm sure we'll be I'll be seeing you at Ice House again, but you'll be on the stage.
Hopefully sometime soon I'll be on the stage. I got a lot of people out here doing what they can to help me out and show me around the scene. So I'm very fortunate.
Yeah, well, we're fortunate to have you. This everybody is CODY STEINMANn. Get used to seeing him. You'll see him in this room and around the Twin Cities a lot. So, yeah.
Thank you, Simon.
Thanks. You're very welcome. Yeah, thanks for tuning in.